They laughed when I unlocked the door to my cafe for the first time. Not just any laughter, the kind that cuts deep. That says, you'll never make it. It came from people I'd known my whole life, former coworkers, old friends, even my own uncle. $300, he'd said, shaking his head. You can't build a dream with pocket change, Sarah, but I had to try, because when you've lost everything sometimes, a dream is the only thing left worth building. Just 6 months before that day, I'd been working at a marketing agency in Chicago, good salary, nice apartment plans. Then came the layoffs. Suddenly, I was back in my hometown of Maple Ridge, sleeping in my old bedroom, surrounded by dusty trophies and bad memories. My savings evaporated faster than my confidence. The cafe idea wasn't supposed to happen yet. It was something I'd scribbled in notebooks during coffee breaks at my old job. Sarah's spot, a small place with warm lights, homemade pastries, and the kind of coffee that tastes like comfort. When I found a tiny corner shop for rent downtown, cracked window, leaky faucet, peeling paint, but only $100 a month, I took it. My mum thought I was having a breakdown. My brother called it Sarah's midlife meltdown, even though I was only 31, but something in me refused to quit. I painted the walls myself. Second-hand chairs from Facebook Marketplace. Borrowed an espresso machine from a retired barista who took pity on me. I spent every dollar I had, $297.50. To be exactly, ving me with enough for 1 week's worth of coffee beans and 2 trays of muffins. Opening day arrived cold and grey. I stood behind the counter in my thrifted apron. The sign outside swinging in the wind. Hours passed. Not one customer. Just people walking by, staring at my handwritten chalkboard sign, some smiling, some shaking their heads. By lunchtime, I was ready to close early, call it a failure before it began. Then, as I wiped the same countertop for the 10th time, the door creaked open. A man in a dark coat stepped in, rain dripping from his hair. His voice was calm, steady. "I'll take one of everything," he said. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. And that was the moment everything changed, though I didn't yet know just how dangerous it would become. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. "One of everything," I repeated, blinking at the rain-soaked stranger standing in front of me. He nodded, eyes calm but unreadable. "Yes. Every item on your menu." I looked down at the chalkboard sign behind my 6 muffins, 3 sandwiches, 2 soups, and 4 kinds of coffee. "My entire stock." "Sir, that's a lot. Are you sure?" He smiled faintly. Positive. There was something about his voice, low, deliberate, that made me move without question. I poured coffee, wrapped sandwiches, stacked muffins in brown paper bags until my little counter was overflowing. He didn't take his eyes off me once. When I handed him the totality, $6.75, more money than I'd made all week, he slid a $100 bill across the counter. "Keep the change," he said. I opened my mouth to thank him. But before I could, he added, "You'll need it." Then he gathered the bags, turned, and disappeared into the rain. For a moment, I stood there, the bell above the door still echoing. Then, slowly, I exhaled. The cafe smelled like espresso and cinnamon. For the first time in months, it didn't smell like failure. I told my mum that night, laughing as I relieved it. "Can you believe it? My first real customer, and he cleared me out." She smiled through the phone. "Maybe it's a sign, sweetheart." Maybe it was. But the next morning, when I went to unlock the cafe door, something felt off. The padlock was already open. The lights inside were on. I froze. I knew I'd turned them off before leaving. I pushed open the door. Everything looked normal: tables, chairs, counter, until I saw the note sitting beside the register. A single sheet of paper folded once. "You make good coffee. Keep your doors open tomorrow. Someone will come by. No name. No signature." I told myself it was harmless. Maybe some weird customer's idea of encouragement. But as the day went on, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. A black SUV was parked across the street, engine running, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. It stayed there for hours. By late afternoon, another stranger came in. A woman this time, expensive coat, sharp eyes. She ordered a coffee and sat near the window, glancing at her phone, but never drinking when she left. I noticed she hadn't touched the cup at all. That night, I closed early, my nerves on edge. As I locked the door, I looked across the street's same black SUV. Lights still on. And for the first time, I started wondering if that first man's visit wasn't luck, but a warning. By the next morning, I'd convinced myself it was paranoia, small-town imagination, fueled by exhaustion and too much caffeine. But when I arrived at the cafe, the black SUV was gone, and something new was taped to the front door. A manila envelope. No name, no address, just a red wax seal pressed into the center. My heart thudded as I peeled it open. Inside were 5 neatly folded pages, financial statements, a list of names, and at the bottom, one chilling line typed in bold letters: keep serving. Don't ask questions. I nearly dropped it. I didn't understand what any of it meant, numbers, account codes, transactions, but one of the names leaped off the page. Daniel Price. The man who had ordered every item on my menu. Shoved the envelope into my bag and tried to act normal. Flipping the sign to open, the smell of freshly ground beans filled the air, and I clung to it like a lifeline. By 9 a.m., the bell over the door jingled. I looked up, expecting a customer. It was him. Daniel, same dark coat, same calm face, but this time there was tension behind his eyes. You got the envelope, he said, his tone not asking but confirming. Yes, what is this? What's going on? He glanced toward the windows, scanning the street. Not here, too many ears. My stomach twisted. If this is some kind of game, it's not. He cut in. You're involved now, whether you like it or not. He placed a small black USB drive on the counter. Keep this safe. If anyone asks, you've never seen me. I pushed it back, toward him. No, I'm not part of this. I just make coffee. He looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, that's exactly why I chose you. And before I could stop him, he turned and walked out again. Disappearing down the street, minutes later, the SUV was back. 2 men in suits got out and entered the cafe. Miss Bennett, one of them asked, flashing a badge too quickly for me to read. We're investigating some unusual activity in this area. You haven't seen a man named Daniel Price, have you? My throat went dry. I thought of the USB in my apron pocket, still warm from where Daniel had placed it. No, I said, forcing my voice steady. No one by that name. They exchanged a look, then handed me a card. If he comes back, call us immediately. When they left, I locked the door and pulled down the shades. I told myself to throw the USB away, to forget it all, but deep down, I knew that whatever Daniel had dragged me into wasn't just about coffee or kindness. It was something bigger, something dangerous, and by closing time, I'd already made my first mistake because I wasn't the only one who knew where that USB had gone. That night, I couldn't stop staring at the USB. It sat on my kitchen table like a ticking bomb. Every time I looked away, my eyes found their way back to it. I'd told myself I wouldn't get involved, but curiosity is louder than fear. And when your whole life has been falling apart, danger almost feels like purpose. So I plugged it in. The drive contained one folder, labeled Cedar Project. Inside were dozens of files, ledgers, scanned IDs, offshore account lists. But what made my breath catch was the header on one of the documents. Maple Ridge Coffee Co. Corporate Acquisition Agreement. That was my town. My cafe's address was on the form. And beneath it, the words that didn't make sense. Acquisition confirmed. Owner Sarah Bennett. My name, except I'd never signed anything. As I scrolled, the truth started to form a network of shell companies, all tied to Maple Ridge businesses. Used to wash millions through fake accounts. Someone was using my tiny cafe as a front, and Daniel had somehow known. My phone buzzed, startling me. An unknown number. A text. They're coming. Don't go home. Before I could process what that meant, a pair of headlights swept across my living room window. I froze. Another message came through. Back door. Now I grabbed the USB, shoved it into my coat pocket, and slipped out the back just as a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Outside, the cold hit like glass. I ran past the alley, past the streetlights, toward downtown. My lungs burned, my boots slipping on the wet pavement. I didn't dare look back. When I reached the cafe, the door was unlocked. Lights flickered inside. I stepped in slowly, heart hammering. Daniel was there, waiting in the dark. "You opened the files," he said flatly. I nodded, breathless. "They're using my business, why me?" He sighed. "Because no one would ever suspect you. Small town. No history. You were perfect." The words stung. "So you set me up?" "No." His tone softened. "I'm trying to get you out. I used to work for them. I leaked what I could. The drive has the evidence that can shut them down, but it's also their hit list. Everyone who knows is disappearing." My pulse quickened. "So what now?" He pulled a folded envelope from his jacket. "This is your ticket out. Cash new IDA contact in Denver. You have to leave tonight." I stared at him. "And you?" "I'll finish what I started." Before I could argue, the cafe lights went out, and through the darkness came the sound of breaking glass and footsteps. The sound of shattered glass echoed through the cafe like a gunshot. Daniel grabbed my arm and whispered, "Back door now." We slipped into the narrow hallway behind the kitchen, the faint smell of espresso and cleaning fluid clinging to the air. My heartbeat was deafening. Through the doorway, flashlights cut across the walls, voices low but sharp. "They're here for the drive," Daniel said. "Stay low." We crouched behind the storage shelves as two men entered the kitchen. Their footsteps were calm, methodical. One of them spoke quietly into a radio. "Target confirmed. Secure the files." Daniel's hand brushed mine. He mouthed one word, "Run." But before I could move, the other man turned toward the sound of my breathing. "Wait, someone's here." Daniel lunged forward, slamming into him. They crashed into the counter, sending a stack of cups flying. I ducked as the second man fired glass exploded above me, showering the floor. I crawled behind the espresso machine, gripping the USB in my fist so tightly it cut into my palm. "Go!" Daniel shouted, shoving one of the men backward. "Sarah, go." I bolted through the back door into the freezing night. My shoes slapped against wet pavement, echoing down the alley. A gunshot cracked behind me, then silence. "Daniel!" I screamed, turning back, but there was no answer. Only smoke rising from the cafe's broken window. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the bus station on the edge of town. My lungs burned, my hands shaking as I bought the first ticket I saw. Denver, one way. I collapsed into the last row, clutching the envelope Daniel had given me. Inside were two things: a stack of cash and a handwritten note. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it out. Don't waste time on revenge. Expose them. They'll never see it coming." I cried the entire ride to Denver, somewhere between the cornfields and city lights. I made a promise I would finish what he started. 6 months later, my cafe was gone, burned in what officials called an electrical accident. No suspects, no arrests, but the files Daniel gave me became the foundation of a federal investigation that exposed a billion-dollar laundering ring operating through small-town businesses across the country. They called it Operation Cedar. I never used the new ID. Instead, I reopened a small cafe in Denver under my real name. Same menu, same warm lights. But this time, every cup of coffee had a story behind it, and every dollar I made went into a charity Daniel once dreamed of starting. Last week, a man came in just before closing. Darkcoat.com voice. "I'll take one of everything," he said. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. "I'm sorry," I whispered, smiling despite the tears welling in my eyes. "We only serve one thing here now." He raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Justice," I said softly. He smiled, nodded once, and walked out. I turned back to the counter, where the tip jar sat beneath a folded $100 bill. Written across it in Daniel's handwriting were two words that made my knees go weak. "Good coffee." And that's when I realized some people never really leave, they just make sure. The story isn't over yet. If this story kept you hooked until the end, give it a like. Share it with someone who loves suspenseful tales. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us that sometimes the smallest dreams hide the biggest secrets.